Chapter 19, Conventional Energy. Humans require a lot of energy to conduct our daily business. The amount of energy consumed is not equally distributed. Developed countries obviously use more than less developed countries. The question becomes, where does the energy come from? The sources are usually broken into two categories, traditionally derived from conventional sources and sustainable or renewable sources. This chapter discusses conventional energy. Energy used in our homes is usually measured in kilowatt hours. Kilowatt hours are the thousands of kilowatts used per hour. Prices for energy are typically based on a per kilowatt hour basis. For example, I pay 7.9 cents per kilowatt hour. On average, a U.S. household uses about 11,000 kilowatt hours of energy per year. Table 19.2, Some Energy Uses. Of all sources of conventional energy, fossil fuels, especially coal, produce the most. Coal is cheap and easily mined, so it is preferred in many countries, the U.S. included. The U.S. has some of the largest coal deposits in the world. As mentioned earlier, the amount of energy consumed is greater in developed countries. However, this trend is shifting to developed countries such as India and China. Additionally, developed countries are shifting energy production to more sustainable sources and reducing energy consumption through improvements in efficiency. Each person in a rich country consumes nearly as much oil in a day as the poorest people in the world consume in a year. Some countries, such as Norway, Denmark, and Japan, have a much higher standard of living than the U.S., but use half as much energy. This suggests that we could keep our standard of living while conserving energy. Industry is the largest single consumer of energy in the U.S. However, commercial and residential users actually use more energy than industry when combined. Transportation is last, but if the energy used in transportation was accounted for with the other categories, it might push residential use even higher. As mentioned, the U.S. has very large deposits of coal. Because of this, it is a primary source of energy production in the U.S. and accounts for the largest block of production. A pie chart showing the location of the world's coal deposits. Oil is also readily available in the U.S. because of recent technological advancements in its extraction, fracking. However, fracking has come under scrutiny lately because of risks associated with groundwater contamination and earthquake formation. Have we passed peak oil? Reserves. Total amount of oil in the world is estimated at 4 trillion barrels. Half is thought to be ultimately recoverable. The Greater Middle East contains 91% of proven, economically recoverable oil. China expects to double its energy demand in 15 years. If that occurs, they will bypass the U.S. in energy usage. A graph of peak oil. Many geologists predict that oil production will peak in the next 5 years. A pie chart of the locations of proven oil reserves. Natural gas is the third most common source of fuel for energy production. This may change as environmental regulations become more stringent. Natural gas burns cleaner than coal or oil and produces 1/2 the amount of CO2 compared to coal. Most new power plants built in the U.S. recently have been gas-fired plants. One downside to natural gas is the reserves are not as large when compared to coal or oil. At current utilization rates, there is only about 60 years of natural gas left unless more efficient methods of extraction and transport are developed. A pie chart of proven natural gas reserves by region. Nuclear power was once thought to be the answer to our energy problems. It can easily produce energy by converting steam to electricity through turbine generation. However, many countries have abandoned it as an energy source because the spent fuel is radioactive, and we do not have an effective way to store it at this time. The waste will stay radioactive for long periods of time, so the storage method has to be stable for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So far, no system has been developed that can do that. Additionally, the risks associated with an environmental disaster are high due to partial or total core meltdowns like the ones that occurred in Chernobyl in Japan. A photo of a nuclear power plant. Because of the dangers associated with nuclear power, the plants have to be constructed in such a way as to protect the environment around them. In the U.S., these costs are so high that nuclear power is more expensive than coal power. The end result is that very few nuclear power plants have been built in the U.S. in decades. The newest plant did not come online until October of 2016, and only 4 are scheduled to open in the future. Not only are the costs to build and operate high, the costs to decommission a plant are extremely high. A graph of nuclear power plant history. Decompositioning old nuclear plants. Most plants have only a 30-year operating life. Reactors must be disassembled and the parts removed by remote-controlled robots. The debris must be stored as nuclear waste for thousands of years. Decommissioning all the U.S. reactors currently in use could cost between $200 billion and $1 trillion.